Welcome to KARL FABER. Today I'm very happy to have Sophie Neuendorf with me. I'm so pleased she's here. She is the Vice President of artnet, and I'm particularly pleased as she normally lives somewhere between Madrid, Berlin and London and New York, and now she's here today. Sophie, thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure to be here, absolutely. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
I would like to introduce you shortly.
Absolutely.
You come from what one can only call an artistic family, a family strongly interested in art.
Yes.
Your grandfather was Georg KARL FABER.
Yes.
Your mum studied at the École du Louvre, I read, which
That's
I
right.
did too, so I love that.
You did too.
Yes,
Oh, fantastic. She has fond memories of that time.
So do I, actually. So do I. And your father was, of course, an art dealer.
Yes.
In Hamburg, and he was the founder or co-founder of one of the first German art fairs, the Art Cologne, which I think is very impressive. And of course, then very importantly, he founded artnet in 1989.
That's right, yes.
And you yourself, you studied, I have to quickly look here, but you studied International Business Administration at Regent's University in London.
I did.
And you started working for artnet in 2012, I believe. And you worked your way up. You started as a social media manager, account manager.
I started as an intern, in fact. And
Yeah,
I didn't really want to stay, but I fell in love with the business.
Oh, lovely.
Here we go.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So.
And now, then since 2018, you have been a vice president for strategic partnerships.
Yes, and most recently I have actually taken on our investor relations as well, which is a very fascinating part of the business, and it's very important and interesting to know what's of importance to our stakeholders. So I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about these people and why, if I can find out they would like to invest or did invest in artnet, and if they have any ideas, they can always come to me. And it's an open conversation. It's a two-way street, and it's good to have.
Very creative and interesting. Great.
Yeah.
Lovely. And then, of course, you're also a writer for Artnet News and for Lux magazine.
Yes, it's a Condé Nast magazine, and they approached me because they wanted to have an angle about the art industry, and especially about anything culture related, but also sometimes about digitalization. And that's our business model. So I was very happy to write for them, and it's a very creative, sometimes very time-consuming project, but it's very, very nice, very interesting.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I read some very interesting articles.
Thank you.
So Artnet basically, I would say, has sort of three main areas apart from Artnet News. You have the database, most important for us. You have the auction side and the gallery network, where you present platforms for...
Yes, that sums it up.
So the database is for us, of course, incredibly important as an auction house. I must say, I work with it daily, I would say.
I'm very happy to hear that.
And it's 1,900 auction houses by now. I think it's 14 million entries by now, auction records online, so a huge database. Now, this database, of course, is great, but it also makes a transparency which isn't always appreciated, let's put it like that. So private buyers might not like it because other people can see what they bought something for. This is what you call in German Neid factor, possibly not so good. And of course, for galleries or professionals, it can be a problem if the price they bought something for is published when they resell it. What do you say to customers that come with this these problems, that say, I don't really want this transparency?
Well, I've got to be honest, we don't actually get that concern very much. And if you look at a recent, actually 2-day-old article in the FT about the recent UBS art market report, 70% of those people asked actually really appreciate the even increased transparency in the art market at the moment, because the online viewing rooms that happened due to coronavirus, they forced a transparency that was not there before, because you had to give an estimate on the website about the amount that you're going to plan to sell the artwork for.
Oh, they would. It wouldn't just be not just visual, like a fair, but they would actually say the prices too.
Exactly, exactly. And actually, according to this report, it increased the sales of those artworks when there was a price, because maybe it lowered a barrier to entry, and maybe some people find it psychologically difficult to go and ask, or they feel like maybe stupid for having to ask, you know. And so I think that's a positive side. And for us, I think actually publishing the prices online, the transparency actually gives a basis for how much you can then ask for when you resell. So I'm not sure that it's necessarily a bad thing. And in terms of the customers being concerned about their privacy, we don't publish the names of the buyer, obviously, and also not of the seller. Neither does any auction house, I believe. Usually, sometimes they come out the names, but we really respect the privacy of our customers. It's a top priority, as is at KARL FABER, I'm sure.
Yes, I think that is the raison d'etre in a way for an auction house, because we do keep anonymity between buyers and sellers. Actually, we have found of late that it was a problem more in the beginning, and nowadays, for one thing, we have more and more private buyers, which means private buyers don't necessarily access artnet anyway, and they're not as worried about the prices when they appear. In former times, when auction houses would have about at least 50% dealers, it was more of a problem, I felt. Nowadays, with at least 80-90% private buyers, it's not so relevant anymore. And for us, as I said, it does make it a lot easier.
It does. My father has told me about the time when before artnet you had to flip through catalogs to get the previous price, and time-consuming
There were these books, I remember, in the beginning of my time.
Yes.
One thing I read, what you said in an interview for exklusivmünchen.de, I'm roughly translating it, that was an interview this January. You said, "I would like to see more collectors discovering works of art and artists who simply inspire them, besides the financial expectations. It's not about what everybody else thinks, because that's the only way the art world moves forward and can evolve." And I totally agree. But isn't artnet a little bit maybe counterproductive to that? Because obviously you do look at prices so much, and high prices appear there where everybody wants the same work. And so I'm wondering, does artnet perhaps also shape an opinion and not allow different art, new art, to evolve as much as it would without this strong financial comparison?
It's a very interesting question. I've got to say I disagree, because we publish prices that we get from auction houses. You said about 2,000 auction houses worldwide. So basically what we do is we give potential buyers, whether they're private or galleries or sellers, the tools they need to make the best possible decisions in a purchasing process. And if that means that they want to buy an artwork that is very expensive because they have the means to do so, or they really enjoy this artwork and it has a huge crowd of admirers as well, then that's up to them. But if they prefer to use the data to see more or less what they should pay for a primary market artist, then we're very happy too. But essentially, we just give them the tools to make the best possible decisions. And I think it's so important to support artists and to support upcoming artists. And I hope that this increased confidence that we give people with the transparency will promote that, in fact, because it makes the market less opaque and more liquid.
Yeah, I actually totally agree.
Oh, good.
I think it's important, very important, to support young artists. We do that here too. We give a prize to the Academy of Arts here to a student from the Academy of Arts every 3 years to support young artists.
That's
absolutely
wonderful.
Very important.
We're going to have to talk about how we can get involved with that.
Wonderful.
Good.
One other thing I was thinking, yes, transparency. Artnet was founded for transparency, but of course it is, as you said before, it is only a transparency of prices and not of the people involved. It's a transparency of prices and of history of selling for artworks, but not involvement. Now, I'm sure, obviously everybody's talking about this new blockchain technology. And blockchains are great for avoiding fakes because you have the history, but of course they also include buyers and sellers. That's part of the provenance of a work. What is your opinion towards these blockchains? Good idea, dangerous, bad, unrealistic?
I would say, first and foremost, I'm in the technology business, I'm in the data business, so I would have to say I'm a huge fan of blockchain technology. I do, however, have some reservations and opinions about how it be best implemented within the art industry. I completely agree that it's good to be careful and to ward off against possible fakes and also against maybe some criminal activities that we wouldn't want to happen, which we know sometimes happens. So this is positive, this is perfect, and I would definitely support blockchain technology in that aspect. But the problem, I think, is getting everybody involved. And I think the only way blockchain technology can really have an effect is if everybody within the industry agrees to use it and to get on board with that. And if that doesn't happen, then it's very one-sided. And maybe some people will engage with it, maybe some people won't. The other aspect is, as you mentioned, releasing names and making a huge other level of transparency. Now, I'm all about transparency. The business is about transparency. But I do also believe in privacy and the privacy of buyers and sellers and general privacy in life. And I think until the industry or whoever decides to implement the technology for the industry comes to a solution about how one can safeguard the privacy as well as increase the level of transparency, I don't think it's going to be a huge success, to be honest.
I wonder whether that is possible.
I wonder as well. I hope so, but especially I think also in Germany, people are very concerned about privacy and about breaches of data, and as they should be, and as am I, and I think it's very important to defend that while also pushing for transparency in the market, like both at the same time. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll see.
I think that in Germany, another just this idea of blockchain, it's not exactly an ecological highlight. I mean, it's got a huge imprint on the amount of power needed to produce a blockchain. So I think that's another thing which is not very well seen in Germany, which is
the carbon footprint.
Yes.
Let's see about that.
Yeah. Well, we see it interesting though.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that exactly, because we are just publishing now our first ESG report, corporate social responsibility, and we're all looking also at our carbon footprint and how we can reduce that within the next few years, because I think it's going to become increasingly important, and we should, all of us within the industry, even if you have a small carbon footprint as a digital company, we should be looking at what we can do better and how we can help, at least this is the goal for us, how we can help our clients, such as galleries, reduce their carbon footprint by transacting more online, for example. And I think it's going to just increase in importance. And it's more cost efficient.
Yes, totally. I think this brick and click idea, where you have both, is very important.
Hybrid model.
Yes, the hybrid. I think that's very important. I don't think online only is...
No, absolutely not. I completely agree. I think also there's some artworks that don't translate very well online, and maybe also that have a collector group that is not as well versed or not as comfortable with transacting online, such as maybe, and please tell me if you have experienced this differently, old master paintings or maybe sculpture. At least for us at ArtNet, we have found that these are the areas that would be difficult or more difficult at the moment for us, but in a few years maybe everything else will be possible, because at the moment, as we know, there's going to be a generational shift, and there's going to be a new generation inheriting a lot of collections, and perhaps they will be very comfortable in buying and selling old master paintings online. But for the moment, I think it's still tricky.
I absolutely agree. Particularly anything three-dimensional. I think, like sculpture and all that, it really does need the personal contact. And yes, old master collectors are often of a different generation too, where it's simply more difficult.
More seasoned, yes.
Yes, definitely. That brings me to the second pillar of ArtNet, is the gallery network.
Yes.
You said in one of your wonderful statements, I love those, the outrageous predictions for the art market. You said that digitalization is here to stay.
Yes.
And I totally agree. We can see that us too, we've been doing 3D tours in our room. Of course, most galleries do digital presentations, digital openings, contacts with everything is digital.
Yes.
Now, I was wondering, how much does that impact what ArtNet does for the galleries? Because they are an important platform for galleries, but how digital is it actually on your platform for the galleries?
It's a good question. This part of our business has definitely evolved since we launched it. And it was the second product we launched after the price database. And at the time, and this is nearly 30 years ago, hardly any galleries or auction houses had a proprietary site. And so what we did was, or what the idea was, to help these galleries to move online and to show their inventory online, because at the time my father saw the World Wide Web and thought, this is the future. I can see the future here for galleries, for auction houses, for transactions, for everything. And so he really pushed forward for that. And at the time it was great. But ever since then, obviously, galleries and auction houses all developed proprietary sites. 10 years ago, there was hardly anybody using social media as a company. And now everybody's on social media. I think 30% of those asked in that UBS report actually said they bought artworks via Instagram. So I mean, the speed is insane. So obviously we had to evolve with that too. And now the gallery network is essentially for our users one-stop shop to research everything. So instead of going to 10 different gallery websites, you go to one site and you can just Google, let's say, for an artist name that everybody knows, Pablo Picasso, and you can see which galleries are selling works by this artist, instead of going to different websites and having a look whether or not they sell. And I think for that sense, it's super useful. And I can reveal also that to make the site more efficient for our galleries, for customers, we actually introduced a content management system. So it's essentially an inventory management system where they can list the artworks and find clients, right? And then also they have, or will get, even more data from us, and essentially a dashboard where they can see how is my artist or my gallery performing against other artists and also against other asset classes, for example.
Oh, really?
Yes, because slicing and dicing data is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at, again, Picasso, for example, and you look at the growth of his market, then you could say, okay, how is that performing if I have a Picasso, if I want to buy a Picasso? How is that performing against other assets? And even though we want to buy art for passion, because we love the artist, it is good for people to know, I think, how much is worth what they have on their wall. And this is the tool we're giving them, galleries as well as private people.
I must say that we use it, your gallery network, all the time when we're
glad
when we're looking for potential buyers of works in the auction. If we just Google an artist and see who's interested in that. So for us, it is very useful, I must say, as a platform.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Coming to your third pillar, because sadly we're running out of time again.
Of course.
Is the auctions. Your father introduced auctions at a very early stage.
2008, yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Why did he think of that, actually? How come he thought of that brilliant idea?
I'm not sure. He is just such a visionary. Just even thinking about putting data online 30 years ago at the cusp of the World Wide Web. I mean, that's incredible.
It's incredible.
I wish I had his vision. So I cannot answer how he got that in his head. I believe it goes hand in hand with our ethos, which is efficiency and transparency, and he felt that was the next step. And he also saw, being from the art market and having been a dealer, he can recognize inefficiencies very quickly. And he felt that it would be better for our customers to transact online faster, more efficient, more transparent than offline. And I think that really grounded his decision making on that subject.
And you always focused on contemporary art, didn't you?
Modern contemporary photography as well, yes. We always focused there. I think in part because these are the areas in which my father had a passion and an expertise. Obviously, him being the founder, and a lot of the firm is my father, obviously. And in part also because these are areas that we thought our customers would be more likely and have more confidence in buying and selling online for the moment. I'm not ruling out that this will grow. I'm sure it will. I'm sure at some point, maybe in 10 years, we will be selling possibly old master paintings. You never know. We're open to it. But for the moment, I think the majority of our customers prefer to purchase modern contemporary art and photography online.
Yeah, but I saw that you're very up to date by introducing things like African contemporary art and all that.
It's a growing market.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a growing market for sure. And we definitely want to cover that all aspects where we think that might be an interest for our customers.
Very innovative again.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we have to be worried of Artnet as a competitor?
Oh, absolutely not. As you said, we are both interested in a hybrid model.
Yes.
And I think online and offline go hand in hand very, very well.
Yes.
And we are definitely not in the business to become a competitor with to our auction houses that are brick and mortar.
No, I also think you offer a very good service, but a different one to ours.
Absolutely. With pros and cons for both sides.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Here we go.
All right. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for this
My
talk.
pleasure.
It's very interesting, and I could go on for much longer. And thank you again for coming, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.